Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Here with Frank Chille, a veteran independent investigator of the UFO phenomenon all over the world. This is part 2 with Frank. In part 1, we covered a fraction of what he claims he saw, heard. Verified evidence of extraterrestrials called Nordics have been among us for decades, possibly centuries, many of them working with the U.S. Navy to develop advanced spacecraft, some as big as several miles long. Further, that there is a fleet of these spaceships functioning as motherships for smaller craft. Another revelation was that our military personnel routinely have lunch on the moon in just a few minutes' drive. Can you imagine what some of the implications are? Who picks up the check? And welcome back, Frank, to
My pleasure.
30 Minutes.
It's an honor and pleasure.
The first part was fascinating.
Thank you.
You had me reeling with some of the revelations that you have received from people who have claimed to have actually been in contact with these people.
Yes.
So let's continue with the story that you were telling me
About Antarctica,
in part
yes.
1. Yeah, start at the beginning.
Sure. Because of the
I asked you, when will there be major revelations?
This is going to be one of them. Because of the climate change and the melting of ice at in Antarctica, they're finding remains of an ancient civilization there. And the Pope has been there. Former Senator John Kerry was there. Other senators.
The current Pope has been there?
The current Pope has been there. And I understand it's all being filmed by National Geographic because they don't want to create any assemblage of political ideology or anything like that. Yeah. So it's going to be a rollout of 3 phases. The first phase is that they found an ancient civilization underneath the ice at Antarctica.
Older than anything else?
Older than anything else, maybe 1.5 million years older. The second part of the disclosure is going to be that the technology that they found there, they're going to reveal the technology that they found. And the third part of the revelation or the disclosure that National Geographic is going to be presenting is that they were not from Earth, that there were visitors who came here when Antarctica was not a frozen barren continent.
You're saying that civilization, that ancient civilization, was populated by
visitors.
1.5 million
years ago, before it was covered over by ice.
Populated, not visited by, but
populated.
They lived there.
They lived there.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty heavy duty. I wanted to share this with you too. I'd mentioned in the first segment that my mom's youngest sister's husband was in the Air Force for 20 years, and he designed closed circuit monitoring systems at missile silos all around the world. He told me when he was in Turkey, he said he had such high security clearance, he could see satellite photographs of Mount Ararat. And he said at Mount Ararat, at the 12,000 foot level, is Noah's Ark. And he said it's in 2 pieces. In the wintertime, it's covered by ice and snow. In the summertime, it's exposed to the elements. And he said it's bigger than an aircraft carrier. He said they did a measurement of the timbers, the trees that were used to make it. He said the intelligence community said the trees were more than 2,000 feet tall. There's no trees that grow on Earth today that are 2,000 feet tall. He said the Turkish government will not allow any expeditions up there because
there have been photographs of it.
There's intelligence photographs of it. And he said they're crystal clear. He said it is huge. It's bigger than an aircraft carrier. And he said that the Turkish government doesn't want to validate Christianity or Judaism. That's why they don't want to allow anybody to go up there.
Say that again?
He said the Turkish government doesn't want to validate Judaism or Christianity by making an announcement that Noah's Ark is there. But he said it's there. And he said it's at the 12,000 foot level of Mount Ararat.
Does he go further to say that it couldn't have been built by human beings?
If it was built by human beings, they probably had help because trees that are 2,000 feet tall. Yeah. And he said the way it's assembled is amazing. It's really amazing. So there would be something to see.
Yeah.
It really would. But I wanted to complete that. But the information that National Geographic is going to be producing, and they also have a program on UFOs regarding the back history of certain events that occurred here on Earth. And they're sharing information and documents and photographs I've never seen before. They're pulling them out of the archives. They're getting people conditioned and more receptive for what's going to be told.
I guess the most celebrated incident was Roswell.
Yes.
The one that we've heard about and will continue to hear about.
Yes.
Can you pull back the curtain on Roswell?
Well, it was actually one. It was not one craft. It was three craft, and the three craft collided, and they may have been interfered with by microwaves from the local military facility that was there, and also it occurred during a lightning storm. So they thought there was some anomaly between the microwaves from the radar system and also the lightning that caused them to malfunction. But three craft did come down, and there were bodies that were recovered, and the technology that was taken from there. There was a colonel by the name of he wrote the
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me the day after Roswell, and he was tasked with taking the technology from Roswell and seeding it all around the country to corporations like Pyrex for Pyrex glass. The fiber optics were given to Bell Labs. Velcro was given to another company. These are all things that were recovered from the Roswell craft. And he said there were 50 generals that were involved in keeping this secret. And he was the only lower ranking person that was planning this technology all around the United States so that it could be patented and there could be a direct background to it.
But how long did it take to reverse engineer?
They started working on it immediately. He said that the transistor came from that, and the National Security Act of 1947 was a direct result of the Roswell crash, so that they can impose secrecy.
Yeah.
And they also created what's called the Majestic 12 individuals that would maintain control over the release of this information.
Do those bodies still exist?
Those bodies still exist.
Do they degrade? Or?
They are kept in a form of protective conditions so they wouldn't decay.
Right.
And there's been individuals who have seen these bodies. Some of them look like the small grays, some look like taller grays, some of them look similar to us, and but the government does have them. And Roswell wasn't the first time that it occurred. There's been crash retrievals throughout earlier parts of our
Frank,
century.
all the stories that you have, at least all the ones I've heard, have taken place in the United States. But other countries have experienced the same phenomenon.
Yes.
And I assume they've had some of the same contacts
Yes.
with extraterrestrials.
Yes.
Including countries that don't like us very much.
Right.
Russia, China, Iran, and so on. Are they benefiting in the same way that we are?
The visitors are interacting with all different countries. They're not allowing them to use the technology for warfare, okay? They've been told if they try to do that, they will not be allowed to destroy this planet.
Did they give us the atomic bomb?
No, they didn't give us, but they noticed that when Germany was advancing with their technology, and we were, that they created a more active intervention down here trying to help guide us away from warfare purposes, because they don't want to see us destroy ourselves. You know, when we set off the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
But here's what has intrigued me. If, in fact, the world leaders know about this, the world leaders, and especially those who have the capacity of wiping us all out, that's destroying the world.
Yes.
Why do they rattle sabers? What is this, kind of a kabuki game?
It is. It really is. It's like NASA.
Because we know that Russia won't, and the Russians know we won't.
And the Chinese know.
And we really shouldn't care about Iran because they're not going to either?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. I've been told by an engineer who works for a very noteworthy company. They said, never worry about a missile strike. They said, because they have the technology that if the codes for a specific coordinate are locked into a guidance system, they could destroy the missile right at that.
They can.
We can down here.
We can.
We can down here. And they also have that ability to be able to stop a nuclear war.
Because I asked you earlier whether or not they would intervene.
Yeah. They don't want to see us destroy ourselves. We've been through so many incarnations of different civilizations, and we're at the point now where we should be turning our back on the old way of living and be more open and receptive to a more enlightened view of living and dealing and interacting with one another.
What does that mean? A more enlightened way? Their way?
A peaceful way.
Oh,
Peaceful.
which is their way.
They live in peace and harmony.
Although they fight among themselves too, I think.
There are groups that have
the
fought.
good angels and the bad angels.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. There are those that fight amongst them that want to prevent people from being enlightened.
Yeah.
They like people being kept at a certain intelligence level or a certain awareness level.
Okay. Is there a time, in your opinion, based on what you know from other people, is there a time when we will coexist with these people, with these beings, I should say?
Yes.
On this planet?
On this planet.
If there are now 6 billion people on the planet, is that the number? 6, 7 billion?
Close to 7 billion, probably.
And most of that number are living in poverty, abject poverty.
Yes.
Will they help us fix that problem?
They will.
They will.
Yeah. There's no poverty on their worlds. There's no disease on their worlds. They don't have the adverse weather conditions that we have here.
How do you know that?
They tell us that themselves.
There's no disease, no poverty.
No aging as we know it.
No aging?
No.
People live forever?
They remain at the age of probably in their early 30s. And I understand we have developed that technology here. This fellow by the name of Bill Tompkins worked with TRW in the early 70s. And he said they developed...
He's your idol, isn't he?
Well, he's one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. He worked with the Nordics in designing the craft for Solar Warden, which we talked about at another meeting. But he had told me that they had developed this ability to rejuvenate bodies above the age of 35 to between 33 to 35 years of age. Women above the age of 25 would be rejuvenated to between 23 to 25 years of age. And
these are living people, not bring them back from the dead.
No, these are living people. And he told me there were 3 men that he knew in the Navy, and Bill Tompkins lived out in San Diego. He said they would come and visit him once every 20 years. And he said they wouldn't come at the same time, they come at different times. And he said, Frank, they never aged. They always looked the same. And he said when they came back down here, they were asked by the Navy, do you want to come back into Earth society again, or do you want to prefer to live amongst the stars? And they said, we prefer living amongst the stars.
Why are they working, if not exclusively, predominantly with the Navy rather than any other branch of the services?
Other branches of the service are aware of what we have, but the Navy is the one that's controlling everything. Why? I guess they feel in their purview that the space is another ocean. And they have used in the past the Air Force as like a straw dog to take all the heat regarding UFOs, to keep it away from what the Navy really knows. But the Navy has been operating off-planet for quite a long period of time.
People, including me, have used the word alien, extraterrestrial, and so on. Do you have a preference, or do you have another word to better
I like using star visitors.
Star visitors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's all different kinds, and they're not all negative beings. There are some that have their own agenda, but the ones that look like us that are interacting down here are trying to elevate awareness and consciousness.
Who created them?
God.
God.
Yeah. They believe in God.
They do believe in God.
They do believe in God.
A one supreme being, not different gods.
Right.
One supreme being.
Yeah.
And therefore they believe in good and evil.
Oh, yeah, yes.
But we believe in an afterlife. They don't have to believe in an afterlife.
They believe that reincarnation exists. They believe that there is the opportunity of continuing to work in service in the present body that they're in, where they give up that body, go into spirit, and then if they need to do something again, they could come back into a physical body. They could reincarnate. They talk about different frequencies, different energy levels, and they said that life exists everywhere. Everything is consciousness. Everything has awareness.
Is the phenomena we're talking about, the other beings and all the advanced technologies, is that limited to our galaxy, or is it out in the cosmos? It's
out in the cosmos. You know, they talk about a multiverse. There's more than one universe. They talk about there's more than one universe.
Is there a base on the moon?
Yes, there is, and they've had a base for quite a while.
Why haven't we seen it?
It's on the far side of the moon, and there's also facilities inside the moon. Colonel Don Ware, who was the one who gave me the Roswell chart, that I shared with your group, and the people will get a chance to see a copy of it, told me that there are meetings that are held, luncheons on the moon, where they leave the Pentagon, they fly in a westerly direction, like towards the Mississippi, but only for a period of like 5 minutes. They go through a portal, they come out on the far side of the moon, through a portal there, they have lunch, and then they come back to the Pentagon in 5 minutes.
And how long has that been going on?
For quite a while. Quite a while. And this Colonel Don Ware was a test pilot for the Air Force. He had his own experiences meeting two groups of beings. And when you talk to him, it's like...
Do they eat the same thing we do? When they go to lunch, what do they eat?
From what I understand, a lot of the visitors are vegetarians. Okay? But they can eat meat if they prefer to. It's their choice.
Okay, so if they eat, they have a digestive system.
Yes, yes.
And so do they have a physiology rather that works like humans?
Similar to ours, yes. Yeah. Yes. Now, some of the beings, and this may be a bridge too far, they're androgynous. They are neither male or female. They're androgynous beings. They look male and female at the same time, but they have no sex organs. Mm-hmm. But there's those beings that are visiting here too. And again, if they take off their space outfits and wear Earth clothing, they could melt among us. And the only thing that will give them away is there's no imperfections on their skin. Mm-hmm. Their hair looks perfect. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just...
I'll have to watch for it. There must be somebody in my church. I'll watch very closely in my church.
I think I mentioned at your group meeting that one of the contactees told me that the galactics have been living amongst us for periods of 10, 20, 30, 40 years as neighbors. And she told me that she had been told that they're in neighborhoods all around the world. And when disclosure is made known,
they will come out?
They'll come out and say, oh, I know those people. They've been here as neighbors for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. There was no fear. They never did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. I have no reason to be offended by them or fear them in any way. And the visitors themselves say they don't want to be looked at as gods, just more aware brothers and sisters.
I'm having a hard time understanding or accepting how when the announcement comes out, and I assume it'll be worldwide, how the Muslims, Hindus, Catholics, Protestants, and other religions I don't even know about will react to this news that we're not alone, that there are superior beings to us.
Superior in awareness. In awareness.
They are superior in awareness.
Yes. They're not better than us. We're all the same. They feel that we're all the same.
But they have powers that we don't have.
We all have those powers. If we acknowledge that we have those abilities.
Perfect beings? We will become perfect beings?
We become harmonic beings where we're in harmony with everyone. And if we're given that opportunity to choose between the old way of living and a more beneficial way, a more harmonious way of living where there's no conflict, there's no age, no disease, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm. So all the talk that you hear on television about our setting up settlements on the moon and on Mars and so on,
they've been ongoing.
There is some substance behind that?
Some of these have been ongoing. I was told that there's been community on Mars since 1960.
Really?
Yeah, since 1960.
How did we get there?
We had the technology of being able to leave the planet. Maxwell's equations were found to have errors in the early 50s by a group of engineers that worked at Westinghouse who were called the G-Boys. Mm-hmm. And their method was to find out what was wrong with the Maxwell's equations so that we could use anti-gravity to leave the planet. Right. And that was achieved. And they said that the road to the stars was open in the 50s.
I still come back to my earlier question. And I realize all of this stuff is mind-blowing.
I know it is.
You have to get your arms around it. But if all of this has been going on for so long, involving thousands of people for a very long period of time, how have they kept the lid on it?
Some people that didn't want to go along with the plan were neutralized. And you know what I'm saying by neutralized.
Been annihilated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point now where they can't hold back anymore. It's time to reveal all this because what's being revealed by the Earth changes with ice melting and things being revealed. That's not happening just here. It's happening in other places as well. Things are being found underneath the oceans that indicate that there were more advanced civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria. And this planet is over 4 billion years old. We haven't been around here just for 50,000 years. We've been here for a long time. That's a lot of time for other civilizations to reach peaks and then crash again.
As we will.
They're hoping we won't have to crash.
They're hoping.
They are hoping that we'll become wise enough to be accepting of that there's a better way to be.
Humanity will.
Yes.
What about the U.S.?
All of us.
Well, what about the U.S.? We're supposed to be the leaders.
We should be the leaders in showing that there's a better way. That there's a better way of being than...
And it has to transcend politics,
everything,
and economics, and wealth, and so
all
on.
that,
So on.
yes, yeah.
What kind of a world would that be? Because it almost begins to smack of socialism.
It may sound that
Everyone is
way.
equal and...
Well, from what I understand, people who've had the chance to visit these other worlds, they say the level of peacefulness and harmony and pursuit of trying to help other people is like their guiding force. And they can't imagine that people would want to be in conflict with one another.
There was a movie with Ronald Colman, I think it was, years ago, and he ended up in some kind of nirvana that was in a valley. And
That's not Shangri-La. You're talking about Shangri-La?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And they all lived in harmony and peace, and these guys came in and messed it up.
The visitors did?
The visitors.
Okay.
Were
we the visitors?
With the gold.
Yeah. It's interesting how we pursue things that elsewhere would be meaningless or unnecessary.
The chart you mentioned before, it will be up on the screen. No one will be able to read it, but can you generally describe what it represents?
Bill Tompkins, who...
It's this chart, right?
This chart, yes. This chart, and people will be able to see it in much greater detail. We have a black and white photo of it. And it was started by Bill Tompkins in 1952 when he worked at Douglas Aircraft. And he told me that he was one of 500 individuals. His book is called Selected by Extraterrestrials. He was one of 500 individuals who was brought down here to work with individuals from the stars in different areas to create greater understanding, to create greater technology and greater accomplishment. And he was working at Douglas Aircraft. And two of the women that worked at Douglas Aircraft were not from here. They were visitors. And there was one man that was there with them. The man was also a star visitor too. The man was there to protect the two women. The two women
from what?
They just said they were from the stars. They didn't say what planet. But
no, what were they? What was he there to protect them from?
From Earth beings, because these women were beautiful.
Okay.
They looked to be in their mid-20s, but they had the ability to telepath, and they would communicate with Bill telepathically. And whenever he was given a project to work on, they would inspire him with thoughts of the craft that he was working on and designing. And to begin with this chart, which charts our progress to the stars from the early 50s up to 2100. And Bill did this chart with their guidance, and it was finally published by Rockwell.
What does it represent?
It represents mankind's travel, going off planet and going into our solar system, into the galaxy and outside of the galaxy.
To the year what?
2100. And Dr. Bob Wood, who was a physicist who worked at Douglas Aircraft, he didn't know that there was a more secret think tank that Bill Tompkins worked in. They met each other years later. He said, Frank, everything on this chart has been accomplished decades ago. He said, we're out amongst the stars.
So they have the power of prophecy? That they're prophesizing.
Bill started working on this in 1952, and we achieved it, working with...
Somebody has the power of prophecy. They can see into the future.
They could see where we could go with technology, and they helped in working with Bill and working with others, guiding them so that we could accomplish this. And I know it's hard to believe, but he designed craft for Solar Warden that are 17 kilometers long. I mean, that's almost 15 miles long.
I know, you told me that before, and I'm still, I can't wrap my head around that. A craft that is 10 miles long.
Yes.
that would cast a shadow over half of Manhattan.
They don't use them in this atmosphere, though.
Has
They don't
it
use
ever
them.
been visible to anybody?
Oh, yeah. He said the craft are made at the base of the Wasatch Mountains in Utah, and it's on the opposite side of where Salt Lake City
They're
is.
made here?
They're made here. And he said there's a facility underground. He said there's 2 doors. They're hydraulically operated on the far side of where Salt Lake City is, the Wasatch Mountain range. And he said there are 20 city square blocks, each door. And he said they hydraulically open them up. And he said it doesn't destroy any of the plant life on the surface. Mm-hmm. And he said the craft come out or they could come back down again. And he said there's no radar in that area that would indicate what's going on. And he said they fly up into space. And he said when Gary McKinnon, folks who watch the Ancient History Channel may have heard about this fellow. He broke into the NASA and the Navy database, and he found that there were ship-to-ship transfers in what's called Solar Warden, which is the Navy's program off-planet. And there were the names of ships that don't exist down here, that are named after members of the Majestic 12. I mentioned that to you in the first segment. And he said that there's thousands of names of Navy personnel that are doing transfers from ship to ship. Well, this guy was caught because he backed into that, and he was forbidden to ever talk about it, and was forbidden to ever come to the United States. But he's been revealing this information over time. And Bill Tompkins said, yes, it's true. He said, we've had the ability to travel amongst the stars for a long period of time.
Are they our ships?
They're our ships.
We built them?
We built them with the help of our friends. But they're for peaceful purposes, not for nefarious purposes.
And I remember you were telling me that these 10-mile-long cigars are motherships.
And there's smaller craft inside of them.
And there are smaller craft inside of them.
Yes.
And the other smaller craft can dock on the...
That's right. Could go inside of it, yes. Yeah. Bill told me that he said when they found the errors in Maxwell's equations, they could use anti-gravity, and they've had that ability since the mid-50s. And he said that they could go from Earth to the center of our galaxy in 45 minutes. And he said there's 7 groups of Solar Warden craft, Navy craft, 7 groups. Each group has hundreds of smaller pieces, and they're outlined in this chart. He said they were working on 3 more different groups, and he said they were going to be using a propulsion that was faster than light.
And we are doing this, the United States.
The Navy is working with the Nordic Navy. There's a Nordic Navy that's working with our U.S. Navy to accomplish this.
Navy?
Yes. And they're beings that look like us. Okay, and they're working with the Navy. Right. They're working with...
Are they also working with the Russians?
There's activity with other countries on this planet as well, yes. So the game that's going on down here with all this conflict and who struck John and all that, that's all diversion. It's all diversion.
It's not real.
It's all diversion.
We have no reason to worry.
It's all going to be revealed that it was all nonsense.
But in the meantime, people are being killed.
I know, they are. They are. That's true. You know, again, everything comes down to choice. We have the choice to continue to be a warfare nation or a warring people or an obstinate people, or we could be open to new change.
Yeah. Has anybody, we're running out of time again, has anybody seen these 10-mile-long cigars?
Some of them have been photographed, yes. And they're amazing. Yeah. Matter of fact, in Bill's book, the original designs for them are in the book. And when I showed this chart at an event in Northern California, I did a speaking engagement. The guy who was videotaping our event was in Special Forces. And after the program ended, he came up to me and he said, Frank, he said, I can't believe you showed that chart. He said, I was aware of it in Special Forces. He said, I never thought I'd ever see it. He said, it's real.
Well, how were you able to disclose it?
Colonel Ware gave me this chart. Bill Tompkins, I had him on Jeff Rentz's program. I coordinated having him be on Jeff Rentz's program, and he was interviewed for 54 and a half hours. And after one of the programs, Colonel Ware got in touch with me and sent me this and told me to share with Bill Tompkins.
So my impression is that nothing is going to surprise you.
I think I could still be surprised, yes. I'm always open to new awareness and new understanding, and we're all students. We can all grow and we can all learn.
Frank, it's been a joy. I mean, now I'm going to be more aware of what I'm hearing and what I'm not hearing.
Yes.
But it's been a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
And we'll have you back right after the announcement. Why don't we do that?
It's going to be in increments. It's going to be in increments.
A couple of months.
Yes.
My guest today has been Frank Chille, who is fascinating and has fascinating stories about other worlds and other people, some of whom are watching out for us, I hope. Until next time, I'm Rick Anthony. This is 30 Minutes. Take very good care of yourselves.